Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video we are going to explore that other setting of the engine mode selector in the A320. Every one of you knows what the norm position and what the ignition start position is for, but how many of you have actually used or even know what the crank position is for? In this video we are going to explore it all. So we're going to start with a little bit of basic theory. When you look into the Airbus FCOM, then all it says about the crank position is use the crank position to initiate the dry crank process of the associated engine when the engine master lever is set to off and the engine manual start push button switch is set to on, or initiate the wet crank process of the associated engine for maintenance purposes when the engine master lever and the engine manual start push button switch are set to on. Now, that's quite a basic theory, but let's have a look into what that actually accomplishes. Now, the cranking of an engine basically means ventilating the engine. When you look into the FCOM, you will actually find the dry cranking process explained under the chapter Engine Ventilation. Now, a dry cranking cycle ventilates the engine to remove fuel vapors after an unsuccessful start attempt on the ground. Now, what kind of unsuccessful engine start attempts are we even talking about over here? Well, mostly two of them. The first one is a so-called wet start. Now, a wet start is an engine start where fuel is being pumped into the combustion chamber but is not properly ignited, resulting in inefficient combustion and eventually in a failed engine start attempt. Now, the FADEC of an Airbus is a smart box, really. When you do encounter a wet start, the FADEC is going to notice and is going to start correcting for it. But for whatever reason, if fuel vapors eventually remain in the engine, then a dry cranking may be needed. Another situation where a dry cranking is basically carried out is when you have an engine tailpipe fire. Now, what is an engine tailpipe fire? Well, let's say that you have accumulated a little bit of fuel somewhere in the engine. For whatever reason, let's say because of a minor fuel leak on the ground, or because some fuel didn't get burned on the previous engine shutdown, etc. So, an engine tailpipe fire then is a situation in which that fuel ignites and some rather spectacular looking flames are getting out of the back of the engine. Now, there is usually no cockpit indication for an engine tailpipe fire, but for this reason you normally have some ground crew available to you who are monitoring the engine starts from the outside, and when they see something unusual, such as huge flames coming out of the back of the engine, that is usually going to be communicated to you, and that way you know, okay, now we have an engine tailpipe fire, now we need to act on it. So let's have a basic look into how a dry cranking works. Basically, the flight crew can manually select cranking by setting the engine mode selector to crank and the engine manual start push button switch to on. The engine master lever is left off. The flight crew can stop the cranking by setting the engine manual start push button switch to off. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we are going to first set the engine mode selector into the crank position. As you can see, that already powers up the FADEC, and now we're going to turn on the engine manual start push button switch. And once again verify that the engine master lever is off, which it is. Okay, so the engine manual start push button switch is located on the overhead panel over here. By the way, if you're interested in a full manual engine start tutorial, then do let me know in the comments below, and I can produce that for you. Okay, so engine manual start push button switch on. And now you can see that the engine is basically starting up, but there will never be fuel injected. And for that reason, the engine is just going to run up to the maximum motoring speed. Now, this causes a huge flow of air through the engines. If we have a look outside, then we can actually see how the fan starts spinning in this situation. And obviously the turbine is as well, and that basically ventilates the engine, so any remaining fuel vapor that may otherwise cause trouble during the next engine start is being removed out of the engine like that. Now, The dry cranking process is basically what some engines also carry out before injecting fuel. For example, if you are using an A320 that is equipped with the IAE V2500 engines, then you might notice that it will dry crank the engine before eventually injecting fuel until certain operating parameters are met. So this is basically the process of dry cranking the engine. Now, as for the manual, the flight crew can stop the cranking by setting the engine manual start push button switch to off. So that's up here, engine manual start, and we'll set that off. And now you will see that the engine simply runs down again, and that's it. That's the entire process. Now let's quickly have a look at one other procedure, and that is the engine tailpipe fire procedure. This one closely relates to what we have been doing over here, so for that reason we just want to have a look at it. So, in the engine tailpipe fire procedure, we basically assume that we are in the process of conducting an engine start, and all of a sudden the ground crew sees some flames coming from the back of the engine. Now, these flames are usually located right here in the, or are usually originating right here from the aft part of the engine. That means that the fire detector loops that you have in your engine are not going to recognize this as an engine fire. So for that reason, you're not going to get a fire warning, and it would be inappropriate to apply the engine firefighting measures, because that would not really have an effect, because it would try to extinguish a different part of the engine than the one that is actually on fire. Now, the procedure actually starts with a big caution. External fire agents can cause severe corrosive damage. Consider the use of external fire agents only if the following procedure does not stop the engine tailpipe fire. Now, this is quite important here. It looks spectacular, but it's not really that dangerous. So, let's go for it. Imagine that we're in a situation where we are already in the engine start procedure. So beacon is on, the engine is normally starting up, and so on. Now, let's go for it. Basically, this is our situation. The engine is normally starting up, and after fuel has been injected, the ground crew screams at you that they see flames coming from the engine. So, engine tailpipe fire procedure goes as follows. Engine master, affected engine off. So, confirm. Engine 1 confirmed. Engine manual start push button affected engine off. It's off. Establish air bleed pressure. So, basically, we've been using the APU previously, so we keep using it. Beacon on. On. Engine mode selector crank. Crank. Engine manual start push button affected engine on. Confirm. Number 1 confirmed. On. And this basically initiates the engine ventilation or dry cranking process once again. And basically, this now blows the fire out of the back of the engine and is going to remove any fuel vapors that might previously have caused the fire from the engine. And that's basically the procedure. When the fire is stopped, engine manual start push button affected engine off. That's off. Engine mode selector norm. Norm. Engine tailpipe fire procedure complete. And only if that does not extinguish the tailpipe fire, that would be when you would start using external fire extinguishing agents, for example from the airport's fire brigade. And that's basically all there is to it with the crank position of the engine mode selector. I do hope you found this one interesting. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And as mentioned, if you're interested in the entire engine manual start procedure, then do let me know as well, and I can create a video for you. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do hope you found this one interesting. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video if you did indeed like it. Subscribe to the channel if you're up for more. Finally, if you really like what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.